Today, 10-year-old Maud is trying to trick Madge Tucker Turnbull into renouncing her vow of silence by making her believe that her pet guinea pig Tuppence is talking to her. How would you like to approach this?
Suppose I'll be the guinea pig.
And I shall be both Maud Flanders Goodman and Madge Tucker Turnbull, Tinker Turnbull.
Tinker, but I don't. If she's a mute, then we're not gonna have to do much.
Well, assuming that the plan doesn't work. And action. So, Tuppence, I'm going to do your voice, and I'm going to make you go talk to Madge over there, and we're going to trick her into renouncing her austere vow of silence that she has undertaken now for 8 months. Okay, go off, Tuppence, off you go.
Squeak. Hello. 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 Madge. What's your name? Madge. This isn't working. Madge. Help. Plus. Talk to us. Come on.
Oh, this is no good. Madge, did you not even think for a minute that Tuppence was talking to you? Oh, you're no help at all. Slam. Maud, it's a my good cast. Season 2, reasonable.
We're getting better and better.
Reasonable fucker demands of Roswell. Ookie spooky cookie mum to Rod and Todd, but not yet. Season 11 spoilers. Granddaughter of a 3-leg Magdalene. Confused by ethnic cuisine, except for Mexican. Sister of flawed Mendes. Evil twin Goodman. Knitting and scrapbook for Jesus H. Christ. Maudecast. She hates the world. Maudecast Season 2.
Yay.
So there you go.
Good job.
So how's King's As today?
Yeah, swings and roundabouts.
It sure is. But I've got one thing to say. Hello, good morning, and Nedculum. Don't eat ham, buddy. It's cops in action. Brought to you by the Maudecasting Corporation, Dibney Multiplex Conga Eels. Sponsors, Log Lady, Vivacious, Susan Boyle, R.I.P. Facebook. We did a sponsor cull. We did a sponsor fight to the death, and it turned out that Vivacious, the log lady from Twin Peaks, and Susan, still alive in the real world, Boyle, were the last 3 standing survivors. So now they represent us. Although Jack,
No more Derrida.
Derrida's still there. But we've still got a whole book of his quotes to go through, and I'm not gonna waste that magic. But yes, do you want to give the good people a little bit of a heads up of what they might have in store when we finally get to the content of this episode?
Today, we're going to look at Bart's Comet, an episode that I never saw as a kid for some reason, because DVDs didn't exist. And so I think I only saw this for the first time when I was like 18 and 19, which is strange. But she's all over it towards the end. Over it.
She's all in it, up in it,
yeah,
in it. I remember seeing this one. I remember seeing this one as a younger man, but it's not a bad one.
Yeah, I like it.
Maud pops up a fair few times.
Well, she's just sort of around with everybody else, but I don't want to say too much too early.
We certainly do not. Now I do know. Do you want to check in with you about the Maud Flanders Internet Museum and Database? I've booked the tickets to St. Kitts and Ben Nevis, and we're going to fly out next Tuesday to deal with their hobgoblin problem, as we're basically the worldwide Maud cops, although there are upwards of 70 Maud Flanders Internet Museum and Database scattered around the world. We essentially go out there, when the shite has really hit the fan, as it has currently in over there in St. Kitts and Ben Nevis. Cotton ground has now been entirely devastated, and the Charlestown Maud pencil factory apparently now is entirely overtaken by hobgoblins, and they actually seem to be doing a decent job of running the place, but that's by the by. We don't want hobgoblins in giving them the impression they can just come in here and take over our stuff. So that's where we're going to be. But for this week, how did you get on with fixing our flooded curry room? Because there was one man running the curry line, and I think the entire room eventually flooded entirely with very sweet and delicious Maud Flanders curry. But how did you get on with fixing that?
Well, I brought in a couple of people. I brought in that big fat Scouse woman and the little one who cleaned things. You know, the one who's always angry at people.
Yeah, angry.
And I thought they were going to clean things up, but she just called me a bully and left. and
the last.
So now I've got, what's that?
Go on, continue.
So I've got Stamp. What he says he's Stamp's cousin, and his name is Envelope. And I got him on it, and I just locked him in there, and I can just every now and again I just hear someone shout like, "Oh shit!" And so I think it's going all right.
I did walk past the other day, and it looked like a body floated by the window, a curry-stained body.
Yeah, that's something else.
That's unrelated, but
yeah,
we did have a visit from TV cook James, what's his name, from Saturday Kitchen. He called by the other day, and I locked him in the room as well. You know what I mean?
James, yeah, the tasteless plain curry man, James Martin.
James Martin, yeah, off Saturday Kitchen. So he's in there, Envelope's in there, the little angry Scouse guy off the telly's in there as well, and there may be a couple of other
Kim
people.
Woodburn.
I think it's best just probably board up the windows and pretend that room doesn't exist and just build a new curry room, to be honest.
Yeah, because it's no more can leak, so it's sort of at its fullest. So,
yeah, it's saturated. The room's saturated with curry. A rather mild coma. So it's not going to do any harm to the environment should one day it eventually leak into the ground. We've got coma in our water supply, in the coma in the groundwater.
Yeah.
That's never been a problem for anyone, so let's not worry about it.
No, I say we just roll with the punches like Maud would and stare into the middle distance.
Exactly. So we'll be out for a few weeks in Kits and Ben Nevis solving this hobgoblin problem. We'll deal with it when we get back. But for now, how would you like a Derrida quote?
Yes, please.
This one's ridiculously long. So get ready. How can another? Hold on. I've got some polos that my mum bought me for my birthday. Spearmint polos. Gonna have to get rid of this before I launch into this quote because it's a long one. Drinking some mugicha. All right.
Take your time.
How can another see into me, into my most secret self, without my being able to see into myself, and without my being able to see him in me? And if my secret self, that which can be revealed only to the other, to the holy other, or to God if you wish, is a secret that I will never reflect on, that I will never know or experience or possess as my own, then what sense is there in saying that it is my secret, or in saying more generally that a secret belongs, that it is proper to or belongs to someone, or to some other who remains someone? It's perhaps there that we find the secret of secrecy, namely, that it is not a matter of knowing, and that it is there for no one. A secret doesn't belong. It can never be said to be at home or in its place. The question of the self, who am I, not in the sense of who am I, but rather who is this that can say who, what is the I, and what becomes of the responsibility once the identity of the I trembles in secret.
Yeah, I followed about a third of it. The first, I can relate it to Maud and her secret keeping, in that it sounds like he's saying what Maud thinks about herself is controllable, but the things that other people, like say Marge and Helen, they also have their ideas of what Maud's secrets are. So it doesn't really matter what they actually are, because Marge and Helen they already have their impression of the secret in their head, whether it's right or wrong. So that's about all I got out of that. Then he mentioned God, and I know that Maud likes God, so there's that.
he also seemed to suggest everything you said, but on top of that, just as Derrida's a tricky fox, isn't he? He also thought that he would not just talk about secrets and not being able to see them, but also the very notion of being able to hold a secret and that God can see your secrets, all that kind of stuff. It's a bit of a mess, to be honest. It sounds like Derrida was running out of time, running for the buzz, and he had to finish this quote.
Yeah, it's the most, so far I'd say it's the most Maud applicable. But a bit of a Dr. Seuss ending.
I like the ending where he said, "And what becomes of the responsibility once the identity of the I trembles in secret?" Basically, I think he might be talking about the core secrets that you can never reveal and that maybe only God could know.
Like the ice cream eating.
Had there not been a video camera in that room, then yes. But
in Maud's head, though, Maud doesn't know that anybody else knows.
Oh,
so Maud,
he knows. These are secrets that Derrida said. Are there secrets that even Maud herself doesn't know about Maud?
Oh, yeah, I'd like to think so. Some deep-rooted, hereditary problems or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. Because we know that sometimes she wants the world to burn, but we think she knows that too, right? That's not a dark, secret desire. That's just below the surface, very conscious.
Yeah, I think she's on board with that. I don't think it's like an instinctive thing. I think she roots for it sometimes.
She's actively seeking out danger and the end of all existence. God, what have we got ourselves into?
She might, maybe she'll get a wish this week.
Oof. I'm telling you, it comes close at times. The end is nigh. It very much seems so. We did give a spoiler last week, but if you haven't seen it, you're in for a humdinger. But we've got just enough time before we launch into content to do a Maudatorium. We got 200 and let's say 58. Give me a number between 1 and 258.
76.
76, a great number. Have we had it before? Doesn't matter. We'll do it again if we have. 76. Ooh. Oregon, Springfield, North Dakota, Tulsa, Washington, ?
I believe they are the places that relate to Maud, speculatory.
Well, North Dakota for sure. Tulsa we talked about last week, about maybe she was at university in Tulsa, Oklahoma. How about Washington and Oregon, Springfield?
Washington state is Magdalena and the gang.
Yeah.
And I believe Oregon is where Matt Groening is from.
I believe that he eventually did say that the Springfield in The Simpsons is based on Springfield in Oregon.
Which is kind of always I'm pretty sure that's where he grew up. Maybe not Springfield, but I know quite a few of the writers grew up in Springfield because he picked it because it was one of the most generic. You briefly lived in a Springfield?
I did. Near Springfield Park in Wigan.
Yep. Yes, there's a lot of Springfields, but I think also Oregon is related to Lost, which is no longer one of our sponsors, which is a shame.
It can always come back. It might make a comeback in some kind of like cyclical time travel non sequitur.
Maybe
in the last episode. It'll just turn up for no good reason.
Yes. Dead the whole time.
Exactly. All right, well, that's enough of that then. Although we could add Edinburgh. We can add Edinburgh to that list, right?
Yeah. I'll be going to Edinburgh next Monday, so I'll see if I find any Maud nuggets.
See if you find any signifiers that Maud was in the area, and see if you can also see that statue of Braveheart that is modelled on Mel Gibson that's in Edinburgh.
I will look for that.
Alrighty, so content. Without any further ados, if you're still with us, good work. I've got to say, so far it's been a little bit of an uphill battle in this episode, but that's going to make us all strong. That's going to make us all stronger. So clip 1, content. Clip 1. In a nuclear bunker, Flanders to the left, Maud at the front, Simpsons to the right. Marge says, "We've got 1 more hour." Looks at the watch. Homer groans, "Ooh, an hour." Maud sits there, hands clasped with a great posture as always. The Flanders family absolutely still. None of them move even a muscle while the Simpsons are talking about how long there's an hour. I mean, what a beautiful example of like stoicism in the face of this absolute pain of having to wait 60 minutes to know whether the world has ended. And I did point out, because I'd forgotten the ending, spoiler, that the bunker looks pretty solidly made out of breeze blocks. That's it.
Yeah, it's a small one. Homer goes on to. I think I cut this out because I thought there was we were going to do these all last time and we were out of time. But Homer says, "Where is this comet?" And then there's a knock on the door and he says, "There it is," which always made me laugh. Maude here is again gleefully and like sort of like stoically waiting for the end. She's not moving. There's probably activities to be passing time. She could be sketching, but she isn't. And she also doesn't seem that bothered that Homer's whinging. Whereas, her face, the last time they were this confined in the car with her on the way to the beach, she was livid.
Yeah. Homer, other than a bit of whining, though, he didn't really do anything as annoying as the rapping Ronnie Reagan tape that he pulled out. Now, again,
yeah, but the context of this in Maude's head would be, if this comet does hit, whether she thinks that's bad or good, she's now in a situation where, much like the Bongo cast, these are going to be the only two families left in Springfield if this bomb shelter works, and she doesn't seem to mind.
She didn't mind then either, did she? There was the last time we did a lot of staring off into space and smiling, and generally not too bothered, even when Homer viciously attacked her husband for no good reason. And who knows what kind of shenanigans would have gone on. I imagine that Maude, while she's sitting there very smiling, very, very carefully, actually has razor blades in between her fingers ready to just smack Homer should he decide that he's going cabin crazy and tries to make a move for it. I imagine she'd just take him down ruthlessly, rip his body for parts.
The alternate suggestion I have is maybe Ned entrusted Maude with the the hiring and construction of this bomb shelter. Like maybe she was the one who said, I know some people, my sister knows, etc., X, Y, and Z. So Maude may have had it designed shoddily so that it in fact didn't work. So she sat there knowing that when the comet hits, they won't be safe anyway. So she doesn't really mind Homer's nonsense.
Well, that's a very dark take on this, but also, given the outcome of the episode, makes a lot of sense. So basically she said, "Hey, Neddy, leave this with me. I'll make sure, wink, wink, that this shelter's strong enough to withstand a 50 million megaton bomb." And then she said to her mate, "Just pile all the bricks on top of each other. Oh, you don't need any of that cement stuff between them. That's just that's just an extra cost we don't need,
For a start, it's above ground.
Yeah.
Isn't always the best start, is it?
I think usually nuclear bunkers are below ground traditionally. I don't know. What's the history of this shelter like? Was it mentioned ever before, or was it so they just always had it in their back garden?
I don't think it's ever been there before. It definitely wasn't there for the barbecue or the chicken wishbone incident. Homer just says something along the lines of, "Let's go to the shelter." And Lisa says, "We have a bomb shelter." And he says, Homer Simpson takes care of his family. And then it cuts to the scene we did last week at the end where he tells them to get out.
Yeah, we didn't follow that up. So in the end, they didn't leave. So it's obviously they came to some conclusion. And again, I think probably Maude, maybe Marge, stepped in between them and said, "No, Homer, that's an unacceptable solution. There's enough room for all of us."
Yeah, Marge just snaps at him. I thought I left this in, but Marge just snaps at him and says, "Get in the shelter, Homer." And he does.
Oh, sorted it. But I would have liked more just glared at him with a slight little, her eyes just slightly squinted at him to say, "Do not mess with me, Homer Simpson. We're going to be in this shelter for a little while together, and you do not want to wake up with some cheese wire around your neck." Although, to be honest, there's a good chance that's going to happen anyway. Once those lights go out, lights come back on. Oh, they've all been murdered. It wouldn't take much to set. We already know Ned has an absolute rage problem. Later, we find out that one of his children doesn't take much pushing to start loading up the weapons for retribution, and
knows how to.
What's that?
He also knows how to do it. We'll get to that later, but he doesn't have a problem.
We're very excited about the show, aren't we? Jumping around all over the place. So shall we move to clip 2?
Yes.
Because as close as the Simpsons and the Flanders are, Maude and Homer are going to get a whole lot closer before the end of this episode. Homer is now struggling to close the door of the shelter because pretty much all of Springfield are now in there. Maude is squished up right next to Homer. Their bodies must be squished like on an early morning commute in Tokyo Town Central. He will like that, maybe. She will not. There are comedic back and forths around the room, and Lisa says, I get out, but I don't know where I am. Barney says, something's touching me, and Skinner says, I am, and Barney quite likes that. He says, okay, because it was the 90s, and that stuff was acceptable back then. Maude, during this whole interaction, is just stirring silently, inquisitively maybe, as Homer's pudding-filled body is squashed up, and maybe the rest of her body squashed against the shoddily constructed wall of the nuclear fallout shelter.
Yeah.
Krusty's. Oh yeah. Then they start to make a list of who should stay and who should go. Right.
Yeah. I'll interject now before that bit. I don't really have much to say other than I noticed Wally from Where's Wally is present for a brief thing at the start when you see everybody. I think Maude is at this point regretting everything that's led up to this moment in her head. Not in life, but just in like the immediate past. Why didn't I make a bigger shelter? Like, why did I foresee Homer pulling all this, jazz, and I didn't foresee the rest of these idiots trying it?
Yeah, she basically hasn't really thought her plan through. This is indeed her plan. She hasn't thought it through at all in the slightest, has she?
No, and I do like that Barney has some sort of. Barney and Skinner, outside of the B-sharps, I can't think of them interacting. So I like that Barney has, a deep admiration for Skinner.
If anyone's hands are going to be on me, it should be Seymour's.
Yes. But there's a lot of people missing. It's not the whole thing.
I did notice that unless we're just at a strange vantage point in which we don't get to see everybody, then there's a whole bunch of people not there.
Maude's possible relations, aren't present. Maude's friends, Luann and Agnes and Edna, aren't present. Helen's there. But that's about it. No one else that Maude cares about is in that shelter.
So Maude's small circle of friends, Ruth Powers, Janice Hubler, her evil sister, Laurie Goodman, none of them made the cut.
No.
Her investorettes didn't make the cut. Her family did, but there's also a bunch of random people we've never seen before who did make the cut.
Yeah. So again, this must just be and it sort of makes sense that the ones that Maude is friends with, are sensible enough to have their own plan in place and don't need to use somebody else's shelter.
Are you suggesting that there's another shelter somewhere that's a little bit more exclusive?
There sort of has to be something because, Burns is sorted. He's off somewhere, safe. I imagine he wouldn't let anybody else in though.
Oh, no.
The Wiggums aren't particularly bright, but he has the advantage of the police station, and maybe there's something there. The Van Houtens seem to have a plan in place. The Hibberts. Is Hibbert there?
Hard to say.
I remember. But, the strangest one is Krusty, because Krusty's, well off. The rest of these people, it makes sense that they wouldn't have their own sort of bomb shelter, and it would be Flanders who was the most prepared, but Krusty is a celebrity.
I imagine Krusty would have a delightful entertainment-based fallout shelter with a white piano and a swing in it.
Given all the Sideshow Bob incidents, you'd think he'd have a panic room or something set up by now.
I imagine so. Still, that's not going to get us to the bottom of the Maude Flanders problem, is it?
No.
Krusty, he's saying we need people who laugh, to bring laughter. Mo said we need someone who's going to serve drinks. And we need Homer. We need power. And Homer, you can provide that. Homer unconvincingly agrees that he can. During this whole time, Maude is just making kind of really goofy eyes at everybody. Nobody seems to suggest that Maude might be bringing anything to the table. She's not very high on the list. And then we get Lovejoy saying that, we need religious enlightenment. He then suggests that his wife, the Mrs. Lovejoy, will provide the gossip that is required for any future civilization, although a while back she did promise to use it only for good. And equally, who knows, Maude might be able to provide a higher quality of gossip. Who knows?
Here's where Helen was more savvy than Maude, because Maude stood there thinking, this is where her plan of blending into the background and being unseen doesn't work out for her, because now, she needs people to remember and what she does, and she stood there thinking, oh, I've got no chance now.
Do you think we'll need scrapbooks in the future?
Exactly. Not only does nobody in this room particularly care for me other than in a physical manner, the only way she's surviving is as some kind of breeding cow.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and I think she knows that. Whereas Helen's been savvy, noticed either with or without having to tell Reverend Lovejoy. It depends how in control of the situation she is, but she's secured a place with no skills to provide, which shows that, either Reverend Lovejoy cares more about Helen than Ned does about Maud, because Ned isn't there saying, oh, me and Maud should stay. But it's very un-Ned to do that anyway. But Helen's in, thanks to her husband, and Maud must be thinking, oh, I should have done that.
Well, as horrific as your breeding idea is, the list does seem to be heavily centered towards men.
Yeah.
Was that a 90s thing as well? Do you think in the 90s it was just like, well, let's just list all the most important people that are clearly going to be men?
Yes, I think the white men being considered the most important was a problem very specifically. Specifically trademarked for the 90s. Thankfully, that all cleared itself out in the climate we live in now. But yes, at this weird, crazy point in the time, that was the notion that was being considered. Would you believe?
Yeah, obviously the patriarchy has since then been abolished and dismantled. But back in the 90s, yes, white men were basically in power. Thank goodness.
It's hard to believe now. Hard to believe at this point, but yes, at one point white men were the most revered and powerful.
Now, Nathan, the last thing we want is to get ourselves cancelled. So let's be careful what we're saying, because the internet, it's a wild, wild place. So let's stay safe and let's move on to talking about the one thing we won't need. As Homer says, the one thing we won't need in the future are left-handed stores. No reaction from Maud whatsoever.
No.
Homer then turns to Rod and Todd, not Maud, and whispers, I'm terribly sorry, before immediately turning and continues bashing Ned, shouting that he's the most useless person here, and if anybody dies, it should be him. Again, turning to Rod and Todd, not Maud, and saying, I'm really sorry. And then, saying that they should kick out Flanders, which a couple of things. One, he knows that he cannot say that to Maud, otherwise she'd probably rip him a new one right there and then. Although she's standing right next to him and doesn't respond even the slightest way. And second of all, he somehow thinks that Maud is more useful than Ned to the town.
Yeah.
He doesn't explain why. Maybe there's no logic to Homer's decision, but he does imply such a thing.
Yeah, well, this, given how close they were a few weeks ago, and that they sort of are doing better than they were in the early seasons in terms of friendship. This is just horrible. That Homer instantly, there's no train of thought for him. It's just that list, and then they weren't talking about who they didn't need either. They were doing it in a polite sort of, okay, let's get the definites out first. And Homer's like, well, I can tell you who I don't care if they die, Ned. And then no one disagrees. Nobody, not Reverend Lovejoy, not none of them. Not that guy who that time when Ned was in trouble jumped up to help him. All these people who turned up at the Leftorium to support the business are now saying it's completely useless, which it is. They're not wrong, but Ned is much more than a left-handed shop. He brings... In a post-apocalyptic Comet world, I think Ned would be one of the better people to have around.
With his big muscles and his
positivity. And I didn't consider the fact that Homer probably doesn't, again, I don't think it was a choice of who should I pick, Ned or Maud. He just doesn't think about Maud. So he just remembers that he hates Ned. But again, he doesn't hate Ned most of the time. And now all of a sudden, after being allowed into the shelter, they've all decided that the person who could have just said, sorry, no, we don't have enough room, is now the person that has to die. And it's all very, it's grim. It's not, we're all going on a trip, let's decide who can't come. Because even that would be quite mean. But this is Yeah, thanks for the shelter. Get out. Go and die.
It's not the first time that Homer is... Well, Homer did a little earlier with the chicken bone incident. He did wish bad things to befall Ned, but even at that point, he stopped short of wishing death. So this is another step down a dark road for Homer J. But I am far more concerned that Maude, who, we know she'll stand up at times and she'll voice her opinion. She decides this is the time when she's just going to make goofy eyes at the wall.
I think there's too many people, perhaps, because she's confident in kicking off with, like the sort of the angriest we've seen her with anybody is no sugar.
Oh yeah,
and that was to her next door neighbour and a small girl. So I think she sort of, there's a hierarchy of how she feels like she can behave, and with everybody in town around, there's too many big personalities for Maude to, she tried that time at the town hall meeting to come up with a suggestion, and she just got heckled immediately by Homer and had to sit down. So I think she's done with groups.
So had there just been 5 or 6 people, she might have stood up for Neddy.
Yeah.
But even then, a few seconds later, she does finally step up. She somehow makes her way across the room to Neddy with her arms spread out in front of her, and a concerned look on her face, and says, "I'm coming with you, Neddy." Ned says, "No, you stay here because," and before he'd even finished the word because, she just says, "Okay." And then she just kind of steps back and just looks down in shame, or just, I better ignore Ned now. I better get used to not having him around, so I'm going to immediately ignore his presence.
Yeah, we've sort of breezed into this one, and I would say this so far is the most definitive and important clip we've looked at in 17 episodes, and we've just breezed into it with no gravitas. I like that.
Let's bring that gravitas right now, Nathan. Just tell us the absolute monolithic implications of what's just unfolded in front of us.
Well, this is one of those situations where you see somebody's true self, like, death is knocking at that bomb shelter door, and Maude does, I don't think she even meant, I don't know what she would have done if he'd said, okay, when she said, "I'm coming with you." I don't know if she would have then said, oh no, my leg hurts, or something.
The old back. Gone again.
Yeah, I believe it was a false sense of support. I don't think she had any intention of going with him. Because again, like Ned's sort of the doormat of the two. Maude, I believe, would be like, hang on a minute, this is our bomb shelter. But only if they were trying to kick her out. And it's a hateful town, but I don't think they're hateful enough to send out Rod or Todd, which is nice. Also, they don't take up that much room, so it'd sort of be pointless. Ned's the biggest of the 4 to send out, but again, Barney's in the, comic book guy might be in the. There's bigger people to rid of. But this defines who she is to me. This clip is that she's, false sense of niceness, some semblance of I'm going to do the right thing, and then given the option to not, she will just say, okay, see ya. Thanks for the marriage. Thanks for the kids. Walk to your death. That should be on
a T-shirt. Thanks for the marriage. Thanks for the kids. Now walk to your death. That's a great quote. But yeah, because it's not even like this is out of character. The joke is that she says, okay, but it's not like we're even surprised that she's done it, to be honest. It's kind of like she's got that hard, steely look that comes back from time to time that kind of is like, totally. There's totally a way that she would have done this. However, and this is the beauty and magic of Maude, had she said, let's go together, we also wouldn't have been surprised. She could have gone either way, and both ways are totally in keeping with the duality of Maude Goodman Flanders.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been, and she's a bit of a mental wild card in that because she doesn't give away what she's thinking, it can always go one of 2 ways, and that's either the Michael Caine watching the world burn Maude, or the Maude that gets the Praiseland statue with the shame of joy. There's an angel Maude and a devil Maude sat on Maude's shoulders all the time.
Yes. I think
Devil Maude wins. I imagine this is one of the rare situations where Devil and Angel Maude looked at each other and nodded in agreement. We're not going to be dying for this man today.
Well, it's dark times in the Flanders house, and I'd like to say it gets a little bit lighter, but he doesn't, not yet. So basically, now Ned turns to his sons and he says, Todd, I want you to shoot Daddy if he tries to get back in, and hands him a shotgun shell. Very Coen brothers. Very, very, very Fargo-esque, actually. Fargo the movie. And says, okay, Dad, sobbing. He cracks open the shotgun and starts loading it up. You know, has Maude been teaching her sons to hunt? Because I really don't think Ned has.
Yeah, he really knows how to handle that shotgun, doesn't he?
He certainly does. Through the tears, he's loading it up. And again, what's going on in Maude's mind now? She's just sent her husband out to die, and now she's watching him give a loaded weapon to his children inside a very packed room.
I think she's just backing out of this one. I think she, even though she'd stand by her decision of saying to Ned, like bye, I imagine she'd still feel some shame towards it. As we've established, she must like them to a degree. So I imagine she feels ashamed of what she's just done. So she's going to do a bit of head burying, and she's going to, you know, stare at the wall and think about Jesus until the whole day is over.
I think so. This is called, and someone brought this term up to me a few weeks ago, called spiritual detachment or spiritual evasion or something. It's when you use spiritual means to so that you don't, a spiritual bypassing, so you don't actually have to engage with the world around you. It's like, you know, you meditate for 10 hours a day, or you say prayers, or you go off on a retreat, and you know, ostensibly you're doing it like Maude did a few weeks ago for the goodness of yourself, but actually you're just doing it to avoid having to face the real world. So she's getting into a little bit of that. She's like, I tell you what, I'm just going to pretend this stuff's not happening, and then tomorrow, you know, after my husband has been burned to death by a comet and my son possibly has shot several people, then we'll pick up the pieces and see where we go. And it's like the darkest timeline from Community. I just imagine if there was a spin-off, this would be a very interesting and, I dare I say, fun point for us to do a spin-off Simpsons episode where actually it does go ahead, and then Maude has to live the next few weeks, months, years in a semi-coherent Springfield, a destroyed post-apocalyptic Springfield in which her children are hunters. But now that's just a Rick and Morty episode again, isn't it? So basically, it seems like what Dan Harmon has done is just taken your average Simpsons episode and make it more ridiculous.
Yeah, and put swear words in it.
Put a lot of swear words in it.
Yeah, it wouldn't even be comedy. It would just be 4 20-minute episodes of Maude, Rod and Todd with a list checking off the bodies. Oh, there's Lunch Lady Doris, she didn't make it, etc.
Bring out your dead. It would be dark, and it might not be a lot of fun, but I'm still...
However, what I was going to say is I can't remember when this happens either. It's at the cider factory, but it's only a brief scene at some point coming up soon, probably. But Homer's so bored of listening to Ned talk that his brain leaves his body and he just collapses to the floor. So maybe Maude's doing a bit of this here, but without the over-the-top collapsing. Maybe her brain has just come out for 10 minutes. She's just not. Whatever's happening in this room now, you know, Todd's loading a shotgun. She's not seeing that. You know, she's designing Praiseland in her head.
So she's either doing a little bit of astral traveling, or she's entered what we call a fugue state, basically where her body and mind are absolutely detached.
Yeah.
Either way, it's probably not the best way to deal with the situation that she's already made worse, and in several ways. Cut to Maude looking down, sad-ish. Not too sad, but maybe a little bit sad. Neddy is heading off for the door singing Que Sera Sera. Hibbert is there because Hibbert pops up at this point. And Barney, they look the most concerned of everybody. Barney and Hibbert look way more concerned about Ned leaving than Maude does. And then Mo shouts, we can play a game to pass the time. Makes a farmyard animal sound and says, but he just goes, Wiggum shouts it's a pig, Bart shouts it's a cow, Lisa says a pony, Krusty says it's a goat, and Patty and Selma say, Krusty says it's a lady goat, and Patty and Selma say lady goats are a sheep. Interestingly enough, when I did put this into Google, I do know, by the way, that lady goats are not sheep, but when I did put that into Google and I typed in lady goats, the first question that Google suggested to me was, are lady goats sheep? So that's cool. And Maude, at this point, while the game is going on, Maude again out astral traveling. But she has a worried look on her face, and she's squeezed hard against that wall, against again Homer Simpson's body. Yeah,
it's good that this bunker can take all these people pushing against the walls, but it can't handle a small rock. Again, so Maud might just be waiting for the walls to burst out around her, which is but I imagine she's got to be repulsed, but she's also got to be doing it to herself because she could move. It would take, it's not very polite of her, and she'd have to make a bit of a scene. But if she wanted to wiggle away from Homer because he stank or whatever, she could. She's just let Ned go out to his death, so I don't think she needs to be next to Rod and Todd particularly to feel safe or anything.
So what are the implications here, Nathan, then? That
she's sort of either too polite with strangers to do anything, because again, she's not defended any. She's not said, no, Ned should stay. Get rid of Patty. She's sort of, either doing it for herself to irritate herself, or she's too polite. The Mo noise is probably the best noise from the 32-year run of The Simpsons, though.
It is a great one, and it's good that we do get a reveal later of what animal it was. But here's the thing. Let's say Maude is thinking, when this bad shit goes down, I want to leave my options open for new husbands. Do you think that's going through her head? Or do you just think she's off in the other world, as we said, and she's not even really considering that Homer Simpson's fat, lardy belly is squashing her?
I think of anything, she'll be thinking, she's either thinking about something else or she's thinking about Ned. I think, because again, she doesn't look proud of herself, does she? She looks somewhat ashamed, and that only sort of gets worse as the scene goes on, especially when she's made to feel shame very shortly. But,
so you think maybe that there's a little bit of regret in there, but not enough to make her shout, "No, Ned, come back, I'll go."
She's not a scene maker.
No.
She wouldn't. I don't think she likes it when all eyes are on her. She likes some eyes on her, but I think she likes to control which eyes they are.
But she, given a choice between letting her husband stroll to his demise and kind of raising her voice a little bit, she still comes down on the side of a bit shy.
Yeah, which is possibly in the, again, it depends how deeply these people were thinking about Maude when writing these episodes, because the kind of humour could be coming from the fact that, this family are so polite and so against any kind of dramatics that she would rather let him walk to his death than make a scene.
Yes.
We know that it's because she doesn't want him to die. She wants the chaos of his death. But it's not personal against Ned. It's not I really want Ned to die. It's just she knows how altering that would be for Springfield and her poor children.
And how thrilling it would be, how it would connect her once again with the real visceral thrill of life as she picked up his charred remains and screamed to the sky.
I imagine she was a bit of a ticking time bomb when she did die, in that there were three ways it could have ended. It could have been her dying, Ned dying, or a hard drug addiction. She would have needed to feel some connection to something, and I believe it wouldn't have come from a enlightened place.
So we're either looking at The Shining or Requiem for a Dream, essentially, then, as the other two ways Maude could have gone, had it not been accidental death.
Yeah. Either she would have killed Ned or allowed Ned to die in some situation, or not helped him. Because again, he could have gone and got those hot dogs. And
not a day goes by that he doesn't think that. Yeah,
it's true. He even, talks about it at one point, but we're way too ahead.
We're very ahead here. Clip 3. That clip took us quite a while to get through there, but we soldier on. It's all gold. Maude now is just basically rocking backwards and forwards, and Rod and Todd have angry eyes as Homer shouts, "Enough! Shut up! I can't take this anymore. I can't let that brave man die. I'm surprised and disgusted by all of you." He turns to Rod and Todd and says, especially his children. Once again, Maude's not even on his radar, but just the balls of this man.
Chaos. It's the quickest turnaround. It's even quicker than when he defended him in church, because that was, a slow payoff of him really liking Ned. But again, it's sort of this is what they do. They flip between, especially in these few seasons before Maude dies, they flip between him either, Ned being like one of his sort of friends or someone he can talk to, yeah, like, this is the worst man alive, let's let him die. And then he can just flip back and be like, how could you all do that? But it's great.
It is great, and you did laugh out loud at on your cell phone when you sent me the clip. There's a fun picture that I put in my notes of Maude, and her nose is kind of over the top of, I guess, Rod's hair, and it looks like she's got a big bushy mustache, which is fun. But yeah, Maude, that must have brought Maude back to the ground, back to reality, because she's like literally kind of, it looks like she's rocking, and she's really, you think that would be the last straw, but she doesn't say anything again. Just stands there and let Homer just straight out call them out, though she does deserve it. She did send him out to die. Yeah,
and she sort of doesn't get any of the backlash for it. She kind of gets away with this one because, again, Homer aims all of his anger towards Rod and Todd. Because, again, they didn't do anything. Like, if Homer or Marge had been kicked out, Bart and Lisa would have been part of the mob trying to save them, like front and centre. So that can't be an excuse for Rod and Todd. So they are sort of as, to blame as Maude. But yeah, Maude gets away with this one because Homer probably forgot she was there.
Probably. She really is just totally ignored in this kind of this story which is centered almost entirely on her family.
Yeah.
She barely gets a look in, even though she's there for the entire show. She gets like one line in a show in which she's in almost every scene.
Yeah, this is like the last. Again, she doesn't appear until this point in the episode, and it's quite late on. But then once she's in it, she's in it from them getting to the door of the shelter all the way through till the end. But yeah, not really much in terms of. Yeah, I think she only gets that one line. The "I'm coming with you."
Yeah, turns at once just to completely abandon her husband.
Yeah,
Homer is berating her children in front of her, one of whom is armed with a shotgun. And even this does not spur her on even slightly to slap his bald head and say, "You leave these children alone. They've just lost their father." Something like that. But no, Homer says, "I'm going out there, and it was a baby ox." I had to listen to that line about 5 times to realize what that meant. But obviously he was talking about the sound that Moe made, and Moe says, "You're right about everything." And then says, "I want to die too," which is the kind of thing Moe would say. To be honest, I'm surprised Moe wasn't fighting to get out. And of course, then Homer leaves the shelter, and everyone follows him. And of course, Maude loves a mob. She's sprinting out the door before her children. Seconds after wanting to send her husband out to die. Now she's like, "The mob rules," and she just runs out following them, and once again abandons everybody else to follow the mob. This time, though, she does still stick with the mob. She doesn't do one. Yeah,
she's the sort of front and center again. I think that she doesn't get involved with the Homer yelling at Rod and Todd because, again, Todd's holding a shotgun, so there's a part of her that wants him to use it. So I think she must think, if I stay out of this one, I don't know what Todd's limits are yet. We've seen him, he obviously is quite, out of the 2 kids, he's the one who is easiest to influence. He copies people. He copied Homer's bad language, and he blindly got into mini golf because Ned wanted him to, and it sort of goes on in a similar fashion for a while.
And don't forget, he was the one who stepped up and put his foot down about the vegetables.
Exactly, and that was again, he was copying Homer's language there.
The thing is, Ned knew this, right? And Maude knew this. They both knew if you're going to give this gun to one of them, if you give it to Todd, you know that when the time comes, he'll do it. Probably before the time comes. He's a wild
Rod's a bit too much of a wet blanket for now.
Well, Rod's much more of a Ned man. He's a daddy's boy, and I imagine Todd, but we don't see it as much. But he's the mummy's boy, right? He's got that wild glint in his eye that Maudling brings to the table.
Yeah, and it's Todd who later has more of a... Even if it did take 20 seasons, 21 seasons to address it, Todd is the one that grieves for Maude more than Rod.
He's a mummy's boy. Not much, but he's a little bit of a mummy's boy. Okay, so then we cut to Ned. Ned's on the hill, feeling alone, thinking he's alone at this point. Singing "Que Sera, Sera," and then just over the horizon we see Maude and Marge and Homer as well. But Maud, first one, arms aloft, singing. She's changed her tune. Now she's hugging Ned. She's next to him. She's got her arms. And one thing that is very clear in my eyes and my ears is that is Maud singing. No question. When they first come over that hill, there's about 2 or 3 voices, and one's very strongly a female voice, and definitely not Marge. Ooh.
Nice. I'll re-listen. Still haven't noticed that one, but now I'm intrigued. I did need to point out that in that last scene, I forgot to say that she isn't the first one running out. She's not the last, but she's, there's like 4 or 5 people before her who clearly care more about Ned than she does.
Considering she was next to the door, she probably just wanted to just tie her shoelaces and make sure they were safe so she didn't trip on the way out.
Yeah, but she somehow has some kind of change of heart because she ends up being the first one that reaches Ned. So she sprints past everything. Ron and Todd, I can't remember seeing it all in this bit.
No, they do come in. The whole family's swaying and singing in a moment. But the thing is that this is the point where, Maud's like, oh, shit, what have I done here? I've really messed this up. That's why she sprinted past and got there first and said, Neddy, I changed my mind. I've seen the error of my ways. And really, she was just once again caught up in the mob, really, wasn't she? But she's a wily cat. She knows that she's going to be the one laying her head down next to Ned Flanders tonight, and she's going to have to start making those reparations. Ned,
damage control
instantly.
Yeah, damage control.
Damage control. That's what she's good at. That's what she's all about.
But they do all still think that they're going to die. So Maud won't be thinking particularly about, later that day. I think it's like a last ditch attempt to get into heaven, maybe.
Yeah, actually, I hadn't thought about that. It's because I saw the end of what happens, but yeah, they all still think that they're risking their lives and they're all going to go together. So yeah, maybe she thinks like, because she is a believer, she does believe they're going to go to heaven, and maybe like you say, this is a last ditch attempt. I just condemned the man I love to his death. Oh come on, God, I didn't mean it. Please let me. So
I think that Mer Quimby's there.
Well, Quimby's the one that jumps up and shouts, "It's coming! The comet is approaching!" And then the comet's coming through the sky, and then it burns up into a tiny ball, and then it splits. That Skinner has a big butt balloon, and then the tiny remnants of the comet hits Ned's the Flanders bunker, and it just immediately collapses.
Yeah.
And we see Ned gasping, and Maud is stood behind Bart, and there's a little chihuahua for some reason next to them. We get a face-forward Maud, not a particularly good one, and she's just standing motionless. And then, all at once, everybody just throws their arms up in the air and shouts, "Hooray!" including Maud. She's moved away from Ned. And now she's found a space and she's celebrating once again alone. Mixed messages. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mentioned Quimby because the talking about who was in the bunker. It makes little to no sense for Mer Quimby to be in that bunker with them, and so that implies that people have seen this mass suicide happening on this hill and decided to also join them.
Possibly, but Quimby would. I think what you're implying there is that the city would have its own shelter. Is that correct?
Yeah, like Quimby would be either protected or no longer in Springfield anymore. Like he would have been shipped out of there.
I don't know. I think you're giving the Springfield infrastructure too much credence. It's almost certain they spend that infrastructure money, the bomb shelter money, on like squirrel racing or some other stuff. They will have blown it. Had we got the insight, had this been the Quimby cast, I'm sure we would have speculated or even found out that Quimby took that money and put it all on a lucky 7 in Shelbyville's casino.
Yeah, it's just strange that he has no loyalty to the town. There's one, I don't even know if it's this one where he's doing a conference saying, "I'm not going to leave you," and it becomes clear that he's on a beach in the Bahamas. I don't know if that was this episode or not, and he's just made it back. Yeah, all that aside, Chihuahua's there because I think Lisa mentions that the comet would end up being the size of a Chihuahua's head if it broke down or something. Maybe it was Homer. That's why that's there. I don't know whose Chihuahua it is. I'm going to say that it's Bumblebee Man's.
I'd like to.
Yeah, Maud first across the hill. I like the whole either last ditch to get into heaven or seeing the error of her ways or just trying to pass it off like it was her idea that everybody
Yeah.
leave. It is unsettling how quickly the town go from, we need this shelter to save our lives, to let's all die together. Like, even the sensible sort of members of town, Maud included, are on that hill.
If I'm learning
Like,
anything from this exploration of Maud and by extension Springfield, is that it is a town that mobs up very, very quickly. And mob mentality will just root almost every episode.
And it will also remove any characterization a lot of time, which helps for us to speculate about sort of Maud's evil side. But when you're looking at every member of Springfield becomes they just become one character they just become like Springfield, as opposed to, independent people with independent thoughts. They all join the same mobs. They all, like in the movie, every single person is in that clip of, like walking with the torches to kill Homer. Like, everyone in town, doesn't matter how sensible, it doesn't matter how like crazy, how reclusive, like everybody joins the mob in Springfield, and Maud is absolutely no exception.
It is a suspiciously easy thing to do, to just have almost every plot involve a large group of villagers just running somewhere thoughtlessly to do something, whether it's to break into a child's bedroom to look under their mattress, or to build a monorail, or to run away to their certain death. The mob rules, that's one thing.
There's a lot of kind of group impulsiveness throughout these seasons of like rash decisions with not a lot of thought going into them being made by either a small group of people or everybody. And I think that's sort of one of the Simpsons' better qualities.
It's certainly a trope, I'll give it that. So there we go, Nathan. That was, even though there was only 4 clips, that was a rather long exploration of Maud's take on a near fatal event.
Again, like Maud, this is number 3, I think, of Maud and Maud's closeness with death before the day arrived. Yeah, we're exploring that side of how she sort of doesn't seem to have, she's not really scared of dying, because again, she's got the whole heaven thing to up her sleeve.
You think so, but also there just seems to be a wild recklessness that she's just like, come on, I'm not scared of you. It doesn't seem, maybe it is about the heaven and just thinking like, well, I'll be with Jesus on the other side. But also there just seems to be like, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. Flanders.
Yeah, the recklessness is definitely. And the more we do this podcast, the more I lead into the thoughts that she saw those T-shirts coming and she wanted to see what would happen. I think she didn't think she was going to die. She had a confidence, but I think she saw them come in and thought, I'm going for this.
There is something weirdly ironic that she courted death for so long, and in the end what got her was just essentially something that was more or less out of her control. Unless, of course, we're going to speculate at the time that she engineered that.
Yeah, I don't think so, because Homer was the sort of... Everything would have gone fine. They would have just hit Homer and he would have just had 7 or 8 T-shirts. But he had to bend down. Unless it was saying that she placed the thing that distracted him, the bobby pin, knowing that he would bend. But it's a lot of construction to say if she wanted to go, she could have just jumped off the edge.
It's a rather convoluted plan, but she wouldn't want to have left that bad taste of her jumping. This made her a little bit of a martyr, though nobody really cared at the end.
Yeah.
So, time is against us, and I think we can just squeeze in a page of Maud's diary and a song should we want such a thing to happen. Do you have a page of Maud's diary there? The dusty little tome we found in the corner of the Maud Flanders Internet Museum all those weeks ago?
I do.
Excellent. Hit us.
I have a heck of a page.
Beautiful.
Hello world, it's Maud Flanders, nee Goodman. This morning, I was stood at the fence chatting to my neighbour Marge. We're okay now. It's been a turbulent couple of years, but I think we're in a good place finally. Oh, I thought we were anyway. She told me that she wanted to do a dance competition, so I said, you can't take that fat lump. Who are you gonna dance with? And she said, I don't know, maybe Jimmy the scumbag's wife. And I said, nothing about that. But then Ned, the angel that he is, he offered Maud. Nope, he offered Marge. I just got my own name wrong. He offered her some help, and as much as I know his intentions are clear, I don't know if I trust that woman, and they're gonna go and do this dance off. But if there's one thing I can count on, it's that Homer will involve himself. So I'm just going to sit out of this one. I trust Ned. Homer will probably turn up at some point today and try and involve me.
And then the next page is from a few hours later, and it
Says, I'm currently babysitting these Simpsons kids. The baby's doing alright. She's pretty good. And the girl one is just reading a book. But the boy is, he keeps trying to goad Rod and Todd into some kind of like dogfight, and it's really upsetting me now. And I think I'm going to have to go and put him in the shelter that I rebuilt. Put him in the bomb shelter for a few hours till Homer gets back with my husband and his wife. But I trust him, so it's all good. XOXO Maude.
Well, revelatory. That is, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is describing the incident that we saw in the Bongo comics only a couple of episodes ago when Maude had to stand by while Marge and Ned went out and became dance partners.
Yeah, it was pretty close to the back as well, so I think this happened maybe a couple of weeks before she died.
I'd like to think they managed to get over that, but we don't know from the little insight that we got there. Or
it sounds like she trusts him.
It sounds like she doesn't think any shenanigans went on. I kind of think we can trust Marge as well. As rotten as Homer is at times, I think she stands by her man generally.
Yes, until season 23 or 24, when Homer goes away and Marge and Ned almost have an affair.
What?
Yeah, it's
we deal with that even when probably never, because I guess Maud's not involved in it.
Interestingly, I think that might actually be the one where she's accidentally in the background.
Oh.
So maybe she's just a spectre haunting the town.
Well, I would love that to be the case, because that would allow us to talk about that episode, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So,
good job.
We have a song to round up this show. It's a long one. It was a bit of an uphill climb at the beginning, but I think we got there. It'll have been a fun ride for everyone. Who's starting?
Me.
Go for it.
Comet.
Maude at the front.
Chihuahua.
Bunker solid, breed blocks.
Wally.
I'm struggling to close the door.
A baby ox.
Baby ox. Ooh.
An hour.
60 Earth minutes.
Mirth Wimby.
Goofy eyes. I'm looking at you.
Hey, Sarah.
Am I only the second best gossiper in town?
Odd with a shotgun.
If Daddy comes by, make sure you shoot him.
Apocalyptic Maudecast.
I think it's a pig. I think it's a cow. I think it's a lady goat.
A sheep.
Baby ox.
Shoddy
bunker.
Sonny Bono.
Son of Sonny Bono. I have copyright claim out on you. That song better not bloody start again.
Good job.
Did it. Episode 17 in the bag. One of the most in-depth, what's the word I'm looking for? Investigations into Maudlin Goodman Flanders.
Very analytical, very studious this week.
Very. Derrida will be very, very happy. Yeah. And so would Cerebus the Aardbot.
Yeah, there was way more to say about this than I assumed, considering 80% of the time she's in it, she's motionless, not even responding majorly to what people are saying.